Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mayor Dan Paletko Show. I'm very pleased today to have as my guest someone that's well known to Dearborn Heights and knows Dearborn Heights very well, and that's Judge Kathy Heise. Judge, thank you for being a guest on my show today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for asking me. It's good to be back in Dearborn Heights.
And you served as an elected official. You still serve as an elected official in the capacity as judge in Wayne County.
That's correct.
And your whole family. I mean, Kurt worked in the mayor's office for Mayor Canfield, and went on to be a state representative. And of course, we're very pleased in his efforts when he was down as drain commissioner in Wayne County, and all the assistance he gave us on Ecorse Creek and other projects. And so you as a family have really done a lot for Dearborn Heights, and I thank you for all that.
Well, we have strong roots in Dearborn Heights, and we have a great affection for the city. Our girls still refer to themselves as from Dearborn Heights.
And they've got to be, what, in college now?
Katie is now 20 years old and a junior at Michigan State, and the baby, Miss Claire, she is now starting her freshman year at Eastern Michigan. So yes, they have grown up way too fast.
I remember they used to assist Kurt on the weekends in the office. So the office hasn't changed too much, but the roots are deep. And then you also have strong roots in the city of Dearborn. The two of you grew up and were active in Dearborn, as I recall.
That's correct. Both my husband and I are products of the Dearborn Public Schools. We both graduated from Dearborn High, and we met in Dearborn, and then when Kurt had the opportunity here in Dearborn Heights, we made Dearborn Heights our home for 10 years.
Well, both communities have been beneficial, and you are now residing, Kurt is now the supervisor in
Plymouth Township.
Plymouth Township, yes.
And I was appointed by Governor Snyder in 2014 to the Wayne County Circuit Court bench.
And the court has different divisions, right? There's 3 divisions. Is it family?
There's criminal, civil, juvenile. I'm sorry, civil, criminal, juvenile, and family.
Family. And you are in the criminal, right?
That's correct. Down at Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. I'm one of about 20 plus judges down there at Frank Murphy.
So those of us that remember Perry Mason shows, that's not typical what you're dealing with over there.
Well,
or is it typical?
Well, I see a lot of fine lawyering, but I have yet to see one of those on the stand confessions. I have not yet seen that.
Yeah, it seemed
seen a lot of other stuff though.
It seemed like the show had that kind of uniqueness, but obviously in Wayne County you see quite a bit of activity and probably pretty serious crimes, I would imagine.
The criminal division in Wayne County handles all the felonies arising out of Wayne County, and it is a very busy division. For instance, so far this year, it's only at the end of August, I've already had, I think, 21 jury trials and about 18 bench trials. But that's par for the course down at Wayne County. We have heavy dockets, and the judges work hard to make sure that, or to attempt to comply with the state court administrator's office requirements that a criminal case be concluded within 90 days of the date of bind over. So from bind over to trial, the expectation is that the case will be completed in 91 days.
Well, I've heard nothing but good things about the fact that your performance as a judge is really, I mean, you carry a full docket, you work hard at it, and you really, the taxpayers are getting their money's worth.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm lucky to have some wonderful colleagues, and we have excellent leadership in the court with Judge Robert Colombo as our chief judge, and our presiding judge in the criminal division is Judge Timothy Kenny. And between those two fine and experienced judges, they keep the court rolling right along.
I've had Judge Kenny more than once as a guest on my show, and have run into him more than once at U of M football games. So it's always nice seeing him, and he loves baseball and I love baseball. So time goes by real quickly when we talk either football or baseball. Where did you get your education then at? Obviously you're a local product, but
I got my undergraduate degree in economics at Wayne State University.
Good school.
I was a night school student. I worked as a legal secretary during the day, or as a claims adjuster trainee during the day, and went to school at night. And then in 1984, I started at Detroit College of Law. I continued to work through law school, and I graduated in 1988 with honors and passed the bar in 1988. So I'm coming up on 30 years, and I'm wondering where it went.
You don't have to tell me about it. I just went to a reunion at U of M Dearborn, and I was shocked that the years go by quickly.
They sure do.
They sure do. Now, there's something extremely interesting because in the criminal court, you're also specialize or have activity with what drug activity?
I'm one of the judges in the adult drug treatment court, and this is a program. I'm sure your viewers have heard about the specialty courts that Michigan court system has set up: the Veterans Court, the Mental Health Court, and I serve in the drug court. And this is for people who don't necessarily have a problem with crime; they have a problem with substance abuse.
Okay.
And so, rather than sending them into the prison system, where they're not going, where they're perhaps not going to be adequately rehabilitated, or they don't really need to be incarcerated. Instead, they're placed in the adult drug treatment court, where they are closely supervised. They have regular drug testing. They report to me on a regular basis, and there are tiers in the system so that if somebody makes a misstep, they may go from a tier 3 to a tier 2 or to a tier 1, or maybe their probation will be adjusted so that they have to report or test a little more frequently. But I've seen some real lives turned around in the adult drug treatment court. I can remember a particular person who was almost dead, and the mother had to bring him back, and he's doing very well now. And so I've seen a lot of lives change, and it's really a privilege to, in the midst of so much tragedy and sadness and brokenness that I see in the criminal division, to see lives being turned around.
How does someone get tagged as a candidate for this particular court? Is it obviously they've committed a felony or felonies, and so they're coming before the judges, and someone kind of tags them and says they might be a candidate
Exactly,
for this?
yes, and that's how it works, along within the mental health court or the veterans court. And there is an application process, and there are certain crimes that you can't be convicted of, certain assaultive crimes that you can't be convicted of in order to be in drug treatment court. But many of these people, what you see are home invasions and possession with intent to deliver or things like that. And it does a lot of great work. There's a wonderful staff in the adult drug treatment court that closely monitors these people and helps them along on their road to recovery.
I know one of the most difficult situations for individuals. We not too long ago had one of our seniors in town, and there was a home invasion, and what that does to the individual and then to the neighbors in the neighborhood is just devastating, because everyone's on edge that will they be the next victim.
Exactly. And so when you see a person who is not a career criminal, but just somebody who has a problem, you want to step in and help them, because they might be that neighbor. They might be the grandson, they might be the granddaughter, or the friend of a neighbor. And so I think the drug treatment court maybe can bring a little reassurance to people that we're not just throwing the person away and locking them up, but that we're also going to make sure that they are not a threat through intense supervision and drug treatment. Drug treatment and testing, I'm sorry.
Yeah. When I was in the legislature, I was on appropriations, and one of the subcommittees I was on was corrections. And so I ended up hearing some interesting things, but I remember one of the wardens indicating that he felt like a lot of the population he had in his jail were actually people who had mental issues and ended up in the criminal justice system, but he felt they needed assistance. I don't know if you're finding that out also.
Oh yeah, you see a lot of people who have had prior substance or alcohol abuse, or who have just not been raised in a healthy environment. And you know what happened, when the mental health clinics all closed down, and now they were back out on the streets, and now they're being dealt with in the criminal justice system. It's a problem that unfortunately Michigan has been experiencing for a lot of years. And while we've had success in the drug treatment court and mental health and veterans, there's still a great unaddressed need, I believe.
Yeah, it's some of these individuals probably could get help and go back into society and be productive people, but we end up housing them for $50,000 a year. I remember that was the number, and I was like, wow, you could do a lot of good things for $50,000.
Right.
And I remember one legislator said, well, we could send them all to college. Not that they were college candidates, most of them weren't, but the cost is quite a bit, plus the cost on society.
The cost, the actual monetary cost of housing people, and then the cost to society, that we no longer have these people talents, and then of course the human capital that we're wasting when we incarcerate large numbers of people for, large amounts of time.
Yeah, it's an interesting cost of society that sometimes that part of it is not actually looked at. One of the things that I wanted to approach, because every once in a while I'll get a phone call, and that's where someone gets in the mail a notice for jury duty. And Mayor, is there a way I can get out of jury duty? And I've actually received the same notices, and on occasion, because I think they come off the voter registration list. But we want people to get registered and to vote, so that's not a reason not to register to vote. But actually, I've gone down, and I found that is like really enlightening to go through, but it's really our civic duty, isn't it?
It is, and in fact, I often tell my prospective jurors that our country doesn't ask very many things. We ask you to vote, we ask you to pay your taxes, we may ask you to serve in the military, and we ask you to serve on jury duty. Yeah. And jury duty dates all the way back to merry old England. And it's a whole, it's like I always say in there, my opening instructions to a jury is that both the people who are accused of a crime and the prosecution are entitled to a decision not by one person but by a jury of 12 persons. Mm-hmm. And even though some people may be initially resistant to being on jury duty, I find that once they are actually in a trial and they see it, they enjoy it. Yes. And they find it fascinating. Yes. And they're glad that they served. And it is an important service to perform for your community, whether it's at the district court level, down at the Justice Center, or if it's down at Frank Murphy, or if it's down at KMAC. It's an opportunity for you to participate in this particular branch of our government, in the judicial branch, and to listen to the evidence and to collaborate with other people to reach a true and just verdict. You actually get to participate in the process. And I understand that people have lives, everyone's busy, but I strongly urge people to come down to jury duty with an open heart and a willing spirit. Mm-hmm. And I can pretty much guarantee that they will not be disappointed by the experience.
I totally agree. I think it's your civic duty, but you mentioned something earlier when we started talking about this subject, how people will find it fascinating, and it really is. It's something that you can't experience unless you do, but once you do, it's not something to be feared or avoided. No. And I don't know how this mental attitude arose. It's like almost, I got to go to the dentist, and it's not. That's not really how it ought to be viewed and perceived. That we're doing a civic duty, and we should joyfully want to go down there.
And we still have, for all of its flaws, we still have the greatest legal system in the world. Yes. One in which a person who is accused of a crime is presumed to be innocent, and they have to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Yes. And evidence has to be presented in a certain way, in a certain format, and everybody has a lawyer. And it may seem Byzantine or kind of creaky to the outsiders, but I think when people are in jury duty and they're seeing the process play itself out, they appreciate how the system is set up and how it works and the protections that it guarantees, both for the people and for the defendant or defendants.
I agree. There's a lot of talk of where the new jail was going to be built, that might now be a soccer field, and that apparently, would you be one of those judges that would move to that new location?
Possibly, yes. If they are talking about putting I think the criminal division is one of the targets for that new development, if that's the way the county decides to go, or the courts in the county decide to go.
Well, my time that when I went down, I was in this big bullpen area, which there wasn't enough seats, but then they started calling people for jury duty, so the seats then started to become available. I will share with everybody that if the sheriff takes you up and for some reason you're not called or something happens, the attorney settles with the prosecutor or something, don't leave and go home.
No.
There was a group of people that did that, and then I overheard that, well, we'll call them all back, because you have to be officially, and then at the end of the day, the presiding judge came down, thanked us all for coming, and said, now you are free to leave. But
Right.
just because the one you were selected for, they didn't have a jury trial, doesn't
Right.
mean you can go out the door.
Exactly. If you are called down to jury duty and then you're sent up to a courtroom, and for whatever reason you're not seated or they don't need you, go back to the jury room, because
Yes.
you're probably going to be sent to another courtroom.
Yes, we learned that, but some people took off thinking they had fulfilled their obligation, only to learn they had to come back on
Oh.
a different day. Yeah, that was it was a positive experience. I can't say enough that jury duty is not something to be looked at in that negative light that it always seems to be looked at.
And let's keep getting that message out there, because we need jurors. This has been a problem. You know, Judge Colombo has had to show cause
Yeah.
people who have disregarded their jury summons, and he has had to bring them in to
How
say.
does he do that? Does
He sends out a show cause, a notice of show cause. You know,
Okay.
you have to appear in court on a certain date and show cause why you failed to appear for jury duty. And he
Okay.
doesn't like to do that.
No.
So he has done that to give people a second chance. But I would recommend to anybody who's listening this, don't wait for that second chance.
Yep.
Go down on the day that you're selected, and do so cheerfully, and you're going to learn a lot, and you'll probably have a pretty good time. You should hear. Sometimes I have to tell my jurors to stop laughing so much, because I'm on the record and they're back there and they're, you know, yucking it up and talking. You know, when they're waiting for evidence, you know, when they're
Yeah.
waiting for court to resume. But I've had jurors who appear to have become fast friends while they were
Sure.
sitting in the jury room.
Yeah, you do meet some interesting people. I know of individuals that, like, I was there for the one day, so it came and went and everything was fine. What would be a normal time if you ended up getting selected? Would you expect to have a couple days for a jury trial?
Well, you know, it really depends. I can, because I start at 8:30, and I can usually get a jury up into the courtroom by 9:10. I can get a simple felonious assault case done in one day. It really depends on the case for which you're chosen.
Okay.
Every case is different. I just finished a jury trial, 2 juries that lasted for 3 weeks. But that's kind of an outlier.
Okay.
Most of the cases that I try are probably 2 to 3 days at the most.
So it's a good experience, and like you say, yeah, all of us that got called up, yeah, immediately there's a camaraderie amongst all of you, and then it's kind of interesting to go through the process of whether or not they want to have you on the jury or not have you on the jury. And the question, it really is worthwhile. I can't say enough about that. Do you feel that at some point that you might be able to take on a higher responsibility as a judge, or are you very satisfied in the position you have?
I'm very happy where I'm at right now in the criminal division. We try a lot of cases, and I really do like the trial work. And as judges retire, as new judges are appointed, or then there's always there's occasionally an opening in another division that judges are allowed to put in for. But at this point, I've only been on the bench for 3 years, almost 3.5, and I'm very happy right where I am. Maybe at some other point, just to broaden my knowledge base,
Yep.
I might try for something, for something else within a different division. But right now, I'm very satisfied in the criminal division.
Yeah, I'm going to predict that I think because of how you perform, the good things I hear, I think there's always a possibility someday in the future that you may arise to a higher judgeship, but because of the good positive things I'm hearing, and I think they're very much deserved. I found it interesting because I think, like, is Judge Mack still at probate?
Milton Mack?
Yeah.
Actually, he's now the state court administrator.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it's wonderful to have a Wayne County judge who understands Wayne County now heading up the state court administrator's office.
I remember him from way back when he first became a judge, and he was a young man, just a couple years out of law school. But yeah, I thought I wasn't aware, but he had been in probate for a long, long time. It seemed like he found his niche, and he was in there. I think his wife is a district court judge.
Yes, and Judge Mack in Wayne. And also Judge Milton Mack, he did a lot to improve the processes in the Wayne County Probate Court. As a matter of fact, he once wrote an article about probating settlements for minors that I have saved, and I have used it many times before I got on the bench, because that is always a tricky area when you're handling money involving a minor.
Yeah.
So we do miss him on the bench, but we're glad that he's where he's at.
Yeah, I didn't realize that he was on, and that's another area that unfortunately, almost all of us end up dealing with at one point with a family member,
Right.
And so, and that was a court with my brother that our family has had to spend time as you go through with the courts monitoring
Right.
those situations. So there's civil court and
Family
and
juvenile.
and juvenile.
And juvenile's over at the Lincoln Hall of Justice.
Okay.
And that's one of the buildings that they're hoping to get the court out of and put it into a different building. That building is in pretty bad shape.
What's the cutoff for juvenile court? Is that
18.
18? Okay.
Now, they can be waived into the criminal court through a specific process, but generally it's 18.
Okay. Would the prosecutor first come to you to get permission to try the person?
That would be done down at the juvenile level.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Is there any other issues and things that we haven't touched on that you would like to bring up in regards to court?
No, I think that pretty well covers it. And down in Wayne County, you try a lot of cases.
You do. You're very busy.
You see a lot of folks.
I know the next time I go down for jury trial, I ask you where to park. That was the biggest challenge I had, really, was the parking.
And on game days, it goes up even higher.
Really?
Oh, yes. I've seen some $3 lots turn into $10 lots when we have the Tigers have a game. As a matter of fact, the chief judge does not allow jurors to come down on opening day. He just says
okay.
No juries on opening day. You can do your regular things, but no juries. We're not going to ask juries to pay those exorbitant parking fees.
Yeah, you do. You get as I recall, I got a check in the mail for my service. It wasn't a lot, but it was a little bit of money. So.
And certainly parking is one of the things that the court is going to be looking at very intensely as the discussions about a possible new courthouse continue.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you so much for being a guest, and I want to thank the residents for watching the edition of the Mayor Dan Paletko Show.